The grand hall was alive with whispers, the kind that slithered along the walls like shadows. Candlelight flickered over faces both curious and cruel, reflecting off golden crowns and jeweled necklaces. In the center of it all stood a girl, trembling, her dress torn, her pride shattered. The noble sneered, mocking her every step. They threw me at his feet like a piece of meat, she thought, clenching her hands. Her heart pounded. She had been humiliated in front of the entire court, her noble lineage mocked, her name spat upon. The Dark King, seated on his throne, watched quietly. His expression was unreadable, a mask carved from shadows. The hall fell silent as he rose, tall and terrifying, his cloak brushing the polished marble. Every eye turned toward him, but none dared to speak. Then, with a swift motion, he strode forward. Without a word, he lifted her off the floor, his hand strong yet careful. The hall gasped. She dangled in his grasp, heart racing. "Now, bow to your queen," he roared, his voice echoing against the stone walls. Shock rippled through the room. The girl froze, caught between disbelief and fear. Bow to her? She had been humiliated, made to feel worthless, yet this man, feared by all, was declaring her something greater than herself. The king's eyes bored into hers. They were dark, stormy eyes, yet beneath the tempest there was a flicker of curiosity, even respect. You, she stammered. Her voice trembled. "I am nothing." "Nothing?" The king's laugh was low and dangerous. "You are more than you know, and soon. The world will see it too." The hall erupted in murmurs. Some whispered fear, others whispered envy. No one had ever seen the king speak so boldly in favor of someone else. Yet he held her still, as if she were a fragile treasure, both protected and commanding. He set her down gently, and she almost stumbled. She straightened herself, trying to meet his gaze. There was a strange heat in his presence, not warmth exactly, but a feeling that she was being tested, examined. "You will stay," he said simply, "not as a prisoner, not as a servant, as a student. There is much you must learn if you wish to survive this court." She swallowed hard, her mind a storm of fear and curiosity. "Learn what?" The king's lips curved into a ghost of a smile. "To rule, to endure, and perhaps to awaken the power you were born with but do not yet understand." Her eyes widened. Power? What power? She had always felt different. Strange sensations, fleeting glimpses of strength she could never control. Her mother had whispered once, in secret, that their blood carried a legacy, but she had never believed it until now. The days that followed were harsh. The king's tutelage was merciless, though never cruel. She learned the ways of the court, how to read the intentions hidden behind smiles, how to walk in confidence even when fear tried to claw at her. She discovered that the king was both feared and revered for a reason. His mind was as sharp as a blade, his instincts almost supernatural. Yet amid the lessons, there were moments that made her heart race and her cheeks burn. When he corrected her, his hand brushing hers ever so slightly, when his gaze lingered just a second too long, she hated the way her stomach twisted, hated the way she longed for his approval yet could not help herself. The king, for his part, seemed equally affected. He was patient but not without struggle. He had ruled for decades, seen countless betrayals, and felt little. Yet this girl, she challenged him, irritated him, fascinated him. He could not quite mask the interest, the spark that grew each time she defied him just enough to be herself. One evening, the tension reached a breaking point. A rival noble, jealous of her sudden elevation in status, attacked her during a public banquet. His words were sharp, meant to wound, meant to humiliate. "Do you think the king will ever truly respect you?" The noble sneered. "You are nothing but a shadow, a child playing at greatness." Her face burned with shame and fury, but before she could respond, the king stood. He moved like a shadow, swift and powerful, standing between her and the sneering noble. "You dare insult her?" he growled. The hall went silent. Even the noble paled. The king's hand rested lightly on her shoulder, but she could feel the strength coiled beneath it, ready to strike. "You," the noble stammered. "You will speak no more," the king said, his voice cutting like a blade. "And you," he turned to her softer now, "do not shrink. Do not bow. You are stronger than you think." That night she could not sleep. She wandered the castle halls, trying to calm her racing heart. She thought about the king's words, about the strange warmth that had begun to grow inside her, a fire she had never felt before. And then she felt it, a pulse, a vibration, deep within her. She gasped as a soft golden glow shimmered from her hands. Magic, real magic, awakening for the first time in her life. "Is this me?" she whispered, staring at the light. Her heart pounded with fear and excitement. The next morning she approached the king cautiously. "Something happened," she said. I think I have power. I don't know how." The king's eyes darkened with intensity. "I knew it. I felt it from the moment I saw you. Your bloodline. It is not ordinary. It is ancient, dangerous, magnificent. And now it awakens." Her hands shook. What does it mean?" "It means you are not as powerless as they believed. It means that you may yet change the fate of this kingdom, or destroy it. You must learn control, discipline, and courage." Over the following days, her training became more intense. She learned to channel the light that surged within her, to shape it, to sense the energies around her. She was clumsy at first and sometimes afraid, but the king's guidance was unwavering. He did not let her falter, though he did not push her recklessly either. One afternoon, during a secret lesson in the royal gardens, she faltered. A surge of light shot from her hand, splintering the branches of a nearby tree. She cried out, horrified. The king stepped close, his hand brushing hers. "It is only the beginning," he said. "Do not fear what you are becoming. Fear lies in hesitation, not in strength." She met his eyes and saw something unexpected. Pride. Not the cold pride of a ruler, but the quiet, patient pride of someone who believes in her. Days turned into weeks. Rumors spread through the court about the girl the king had declared queen. Some whispered in awe, others in envy, but all watched her closely, waiting for her next misstep. Then the court faced its first real test. A coup was brewing, led by nobles who sought to seize power while the king focused on her training. They attacked in the dead of night, silent and deadly. The king fought fiercely, protecting her with all the skill and power he possessed. But he was injured, a deep wound on his side that stained his black cloak red. The girl's heart shattered as she saw him fall. Fear and fury surged through her. She rushed to his side, placing her hands on his chest. Her magic flared, brilliant and uncontrolled, surrounding them both with golden light. The attackers screamed, retreating before the sudden burst of power. The king's eyes met hers, wide with shock. What have you done?" he whispered, breathless. She shook, trembling from the force of her own awakening. I saved you," she said. Her voice was small, but her heart roared with something she had never felt before. Strength, power, and a sense of destiny. The hall was silent. The court had witnessed her magic, the king's near-fatal injury, and the undeniable truth. She was no longer the powerless girl who had been humiliated at his feet. She was rising, and the king, injured but alive, knew it. He looked at her with a mixture of awe, fear, and perhaps something deeper. The first part of her story was over, but her true journey, the journey of power, love, and destiny, was only just beginning. The castle was quiet, almost too quiet after the night of chaos. The golden light of her awakening magic still lingered in the hallways, like a whisper of power that refused to fade. Courtiers whispered in corners, some in awe, some in fear. Yet the girl, no, the queen-to-be, stood taller than ever. The king leaned against the throne, bandages wrapped around his side, eyes never leaving her. His respect had grown into something deeper, something neither of them yet fully understood. "You must learn control," he said softly, his voice still rough from injury. "The power inside you is strong, stronger than anything I have seen in decades. But power without control is danger, both to you and to this kingdom." She nodded, swallowing her fear. "I understand, but I don't want to hide it. I want to protect this kingdom, you, and everyone who is loyal to us." The king's lips curved into the smallest of smiles. "Then we will train harder, not just in magic, but in strategy, diplomacy, and courage. Every step will prepare you for what is coming." Days turned into weeks. The girl, now a young queen in training, learned to harness her magic with precision. Light danced from her fingertips, bending into shapes, shields, and even weapons of dazzling brilliance. The king guided her patiently, sometimes sternly, sometimes with a warmth she had never expected. The bond between them grew, charged with tension and unspoken feelings. She noticed the way his eyes lingered on her during lessons, the way his voice softened when he spoke to her alone. She fought the fluttering in her chest, telling herself it was not the time for such thoughts. Yet the heart cannot always obey the mind. One evening, the castle gardens were bathed in silver moonlight. She practiced her magic alone, testing the limits of her abilities. The air was alive with energy and the flowers seemed to bloom brighter in her presence. "You are extraordinary," the king said from the shadows. She jumped slightly but did not falter. I don't know if I am ready," she admitted. "I feel so powerful, and yet so afraid." The king stepped closer, his presence both calming and electrifying. "Courage is not the absence of fear," he said, "but the decision to act despite it. You have faced your humiliation, your doubts, and even death. Fear cannot stop you now." Her heart pounded. There was a softness in his words, a care she had never experienced from anyone before. And yet, he was still the king, intense, commanding, and untouchable. The calm did not last. News arrived that a faction of nobles, fearful of her rising power, were plotting once again. This time, their plan was more dangerous. They had allied with dark forces from the forests, creatures whispered about only in old legends. The queen-to-be knew the stakes. She approached the king, her eyes determined. "We cannot wait for them to strike. We must act first." He nodded, pride flickering in his gaze. "Then we prepare. You will fight beside me. Not as a pawn, not as a student, but as my equal." The next night the castle erupted into chaos. Shadows moved like living things, and creatures of the forest descended upon the walls. The air was thick with tension, magic, and fear. The queen-to-be's hands glowed with golden light, her power flowing stronger than ever. Beside her, the king was a whirlwind of skill and strategy, his every movement precise, commanding, and lethal in its grace. They moved together, a pair bound not just by power but by trust, courage, and a connection deeper than either had expected. The creatures fell before her magic, their dark forms dissolving into sparks of light. She had learned control, yet her heart raced with exhilaration. Every time their hands brushed in battle, every time their eyes met amidst chaos, a silent bond strengthened. But the battle was not over. A shadow deeper than any creature appeared, an ancient spirit, angered by the bloodline she carried, seeking to reclaim what it believed was stolen. Its voice echoed in the courtyard, cold and commanding. "You do not belong here, child of light," it hissed. "This kingdom, this throne, none of it is yours." The queen-to-be's hands glowed brighter, the energy within her roaring. She stepped forward, standing tall despite the fear gnawing at her. "I belong here. I am not a child. I am a queen." The spirit attacked, but together, she and the king fought with seamless coordination. Her magic, pure and radiant, met his strategic strikes, driving the spirit back. Yet it was clear that raw strength alone would not defeat this enemy. She closed her eyes, breathing deeply, calling upon the deepest part of her power, the bloodline that had been dormant for generations. A golden aura surrounded her, larger and brighter than ever before. It was beautiful, terrifying, and unstoppable. The spirit shrieked, recoiling from the light. The king watched, awe and admiration in his eyes. You have done it," he whispered. She opened her eyes, now glowing with the full extent of her awakened power. "We did it. Together." The spirit vanished with a final, echoing scream, leaving the courtyard silent except for the ragged breaths of those who had fought. The queen-to-be lowered her hands, her chest heaving with exhaustion and triumph. The king approached, placing a hand on her shoulder. His gaze was intense, warm, and unwavering. "You have changed everything," he said softly. "Not just the kingdom, but me." Her heart fluttered. She had not expected him to say such words, yet there was honesty in them and a depth she could not ignore. I only did what I had to do," she said, trying to hide the trembling in her voice. "No," he said firmly. You did what no one else could. You rose when all else fell. You are no longer just a student. You are my queen, my equal, my strength. The castle slowly returned to normal. The nobles who had plotted against her were punished, yet those who feared her power began to respect it. The queen-to-be had claimed her place, not just in the throne, but in the hearts and minds of everyone who witnessed her courage and magic. Days later, in the quiet of the throne room, the king kneeled before her, not in command, but in devotion. "I have served as a ruler for decades," he said, his voice low, "and yet I have never known what it means to trust, to respect, to care. You have taught me all of it." Tears prickled her eyes. I never imagined this. That I could be something more." He lifted her hand, pressing it gently to his lips. "You were always something more. You only needed to see it yourself." The court watched in silence, awestruck by the transformation of the girl they had once mocked. She was no longer weak, no longer humiliated. She was radiant, powerful, and commanding, yet kind and just. She was their queen, and yet in the quiet moments when the throne room was empty and the moonlight streamed through the tall windows, the queen-to-be felt a thrill of something more than power. She felt the quiet, unspoken connection between her and the king, a bond forged in fire, fear, and magic. It was not just the kingdom they had survived. It was themselves, their hearts, and the uncharted path of trust and love that stretched before them. The king rose, standing beside her, his hand brushing hers in a silent promise. "Whatever comes next," he said, "we face it together." She nodded, the golden light of her magic reflecting in her eyes. "Together," she whispered, a smile touching her lips for the first time in weeks. The kingdom had been tested, the queen had risen, and the king had found someone who could match his strength, challenge his mind, and heal his heart. The night was calm, but their journey was far from over. Shadows still lingered at the edges of the kingdom, secrets still waited to be revealed, and destiny was only just beginning to unfold. Together they would face it all. Together they would reign, and the queen-to-be, once humiliated, once cast aside, had finally found her place, at his side, in her kingdom, in her power.